Crazy Raccoon, the best of the Korea region, have made it to the grand finals of the Tokyo LAN event, and are up against the defending world champions Twisted Minds. For 2 straight international events, Twisted Minds have dominated, but now Crazy Raccoon have the best chance of any team to stop them in their tracks. The meta is favorable, and they have the higher seed since they came from the upper bracket, so they need to take advantage to win their map pick Illios. And Illios is a map that plays to a certain important player for Crazy Raccoon, that being the tank player Junbin. Wrecking Ball in particular is strong here, and it is of course a strength for Junbin, so it'll be Crazy Raccoon's approach to taking on Twisted Mind's unique sim-based compositions to begin the match. Twisted's first move with their Symmetra is a rotation teleporter across the map to try and flip the setup Quartz on Cassidy. Although this was supposed to provide Quartz with a better position, it backfired in the sense that Quartz was left a bit isolated, chased down by Crazy Raccoon's Catchin and eliminated early. The teleporter was also broken relatively quickly with the help of Junbin. From there, with the advantage, Crazy Raccoon are able to take the first fight. So, these teleporter plays are the fundamental issue Crazy Raccoon are going to have to overcome throughout this match. Sure, this first one didn't work out the best for TM, but beating these plays consistently is difficult. It's hard to predict where the Symmetra will place the TP, and it's also hard to figure out who will take the TP, and hell, sometimes a TP is thrown out purely to bait the opposing team and nobody takes it at all. The unpredictable nature of Symmetra compositions and the sheer flexibility is what makes them dangerous. My past video covering Twisted's reverse sweep against T1 demonstrates those strengths and why she is arguably the strongest DPS hero in the game, and this video is gonna be much the same, except this time we'll see how Crazy Raccoon work to beat it. Anyway, let's get back onto it. Crazy Raccoon's Junbin plays forward to scout the rotation from Twisted Minds. TM decide pretty quickly to swap over to Mirror Catchin, realizing it's a bit too strong on this map and they simply can't get much value out of the Cass in that matchup. Junbin looks for an early roll through here, actually hitting the Bastion. This is primarily to build ult charge. Around the same time, the Catchin for Crazy Raccoon swoop in to put pressure on Twisted's, to the point where they basically have to run off to their own spawn. Also, if it weren't already clear, I'm referring to the Cat and the Bastion as one unit, the Catchin, for the sake of simplicity here. If you want more information on that specific composition, I do have a few videos talking about it and the attempts to counter it as well. Well, anyway, we are back onto Junbin, who attempts to roll through to boop TM to mess up their teleporter. But he fails. This is one of the reasons Ball can be good though in this matchup. If you hit a good roll through as the teleporter comes down, you might be able to prevent the rotation and obtain a kill from the split that is created. He didn't get it in time, but it's important to know what he's going for there and why the exact timing does matter. Both being too early and too late on the roll through can be bad. On the side of TM, they had their Kiriko cooldowns forced relatively early, leaving them vulnerable. Yubi's Symmetra perished on point, and from there, Twisted Minds fell apart yet again, forced to reset. And the next fight begins with a rotation TP from Yubi through the cage to flip the map. This rotation made it a bit easier to approach the point for Twisted. And next is the teleporter that Crazy Raccoon will need to react to properly, the TP to retake point. Junbin hides inside of the point, dangling at the top, ready to slam. And Simple's Kiriko genuinely just goes flying. I actually did not know what to make of this at first because I really didn't recall an update that turned Ball Slam into a producer of Gale Force Winds or something like that, but it really turns out that this was just a direct concussive hit from Hisung's Pharah that was perfectly timed with Junbin's Slam. Yeah, I don't know. And I know I haven't talked about it yet, but the Pharah really is an important part of this composition. Hisung was also able to secure this fight with his barrage kill onto Simple's Kiriko, as well as the perfect concussive into direct on Yubi's Symmetra. After that, it really is just cleanup for Crazy Raccoon with yet another consecutive fight win. We will talk about why the Pharah Ball comp is a straight up nightmare for TM here in a moment. It does have a lot to do with the bans, but first, let's finish out the round. And Crazy Raccoon do finish it out, just, you know, by being a teeny bit evil. Ever seen a Malga get staggered before? Well, now you have. Trust me, I was surprised too, but it worked. Anyway, Junbin has Mines, and Mines are one of the best overtime ultimates in the entire game. Why? Because in overtime, you can't step off the point. Junbin doesn't need to position forward at all because he anticipates that Twisted Minds will desperately TP straight to point. And guess what? They do. He throws the mines on point, pops the extras right on top of the teleporter for good measure, and UB teleports right back into Parish at record speed. With that, Crazy Raccoon secure their first round with a perfect 4 out of 4 record on fight wins.
このままオーバータイムフィニッシュ。ファーストラウンドクレイジーラクーンが取り切ります。クレイジーラクーン。
So what exactly makes this map in particular so challenging for Twisted Minds? Well, for starters, Crazy Raccoon opened with a D.Va ban, getting rid of TVNT's best hero on the side of Twisted Minds. Oh yeah, and D.Va might just also happen to be one of the best possible tank picks in the game against Ball. Oh, and against Pharah too. Oh yeah, and I should mention, also against Bastion too. And not only that, but Pharah and Ball in particular pretty directly counter UB's Symmetra, which is brutal for Twisted Minds who can't play much else with UB in. So yeah, it hurts. It hurts a lot for Twisted. The only upside for them here is that the D.Va ban will be completely unavailable for Crazy Raccoon for the rest of the series, and because Grand Finals matches are first to 4, you do have a lot of maps to play. But yeah, for this map, it's pretty rough, if not maybe impossible on Lighthouse in particular, which is the sub-map you just watched. Twisted are a brawl-oriented team, so dive-oriented maps like this really hurt them a lot. Also, I didn't really talk about the Ana ban from Twisted Minds yet, but basically it's just to weaken the Ball comp a bit. Ana goes very well with Ball here on Illios, so getting rid of the Ana is just about as good of a ban as you can get for TM here on this map in particular. In a way, they just have to choose Ana here. They don't really have much of a choice as the team banning second since their D.Va is already gone, and because the D.Va was banned, they can't ban another tank hero, so they can't ban Ball. The next round is Well, where Twisted should have a slightly easier time, theoretically. They had a pretty phenomenal round win against Zeta earlier that same day on Well, using their, pretty inspirational Flying Hog composition. Yes, it did actually work. It's kinda genius in a sense, but also simultaneously a little insane. The idea is really as simple as Hog being good on Well, and also theoretically decent into a good few of the heroes that Crazy Raccoon are playing here. Also, the cat can switch between carrying the Bastion or flying the Hog in for a hook, something we saw quite a bit of in Twisted's match against Zeta. Unfortunately for Twisted though, they lose the Cat duel super early on, which meant an instant fight loss to start the map. And UB, after this fight, decides to swap after realizing he is genuinely trying to play Symmetra against the Symmetra Annihilation Nexus that is Crazy Raccoon's composition. I mean, I can't blame him. And now, Twisted Minds are really just playing a normal-ass Hog composition, which is, by the way, really rare in professional play. You rarely see anything like this, but I think that's mostly because most teams aren't so inflexible that they need to pull this out as a last-ditch effort. Interestingly, Twisted Minds decide to completely split for their next play. I guess the idea is to have one angle and point of pressure be the pocketed Quartz Cassidy, with both the Lucio and Kiriko on top of him, while TVNT's Hog plays completely alone and forces attention elsewhere. There is an issue though, because Crazy Raccoon catch on really fast, and that lone TVNT Hog will not be left to do as he wishes. First, Junbin slams TVNT and really purposely lets himself get hooked. It's better if he gets hooked than anyone else on his team. Once the hook is out, TVNT's Hog is helpless, and all of Crazy Raccoon focus him down, with Junbin's little boop preventing him from escaping through the mini-room. After that, CR can refocus their attention to the pocketed Cassidy core of TM. Junbin looks for a roll-through, takes a bit too much damage, but is bailed out by Isuzu from his Kiriko Vigilante, who he then protects using his body as a physical shield. I think this is the most direct form of peel I've ever seen a Ball player give their backline. Anyway, we're on to the next fight. While Twisted Minds respawn, Junbin decides to take an incredibly aggressive position to look for an early opening. He thought he was being all sneaky, but the moment he hit the grapple, TVNT turned around, ready to absolutely throw hands. And sure, Junbin gets away with that, but then he really just goes for one of the most obvious aggressive slam spots in the game right afterward, because of course he does. His greed sickens me. And yeah, he doesn't really get away with that one too easily as well. With the help of the Mega as well as the Suzu from Vigilante, Junbin is able to live though. The rest of this fight is just incredibly messy. You have Stalker's Bastion killing Quartz's Cassidy, but then you also have Twisted committing to the fight on point and managing to find the trade onto Stalker. Not without losing Funny Astra's Lucio, of course, and then Junbin hunts down and kills the Kiriko on the side of TM. Twisted don't give up yet, with TVNT forcing Junbin out of the room with Whole Hog, but the fight is really, it's already over. Junbin and Heesung jump Quartz on Cassidy and he perishes in the mini room. Junbin then puts pressure on the spawn of TM while the overtime counter ticks down. And with that, Crazy Raccoon take the first map. But that would be their easiest. Twisted Minds, not wanting to deal with Junbin's ball, or really anything similarly dive related, take the game to Circuit Royale for map number 2. This forces Crazy Raccoon's first substitution, taking Junbin out and bringing Max in to play tank. Junbin won't be gone forever, but this is a necessary switch in the moment. Max is brought in because he specializes in the traditional off-tank hero pool. Now, it should be made clear that off-tanks aren't a thing anymore. I promise you, they do not exist. But when 6v6 ended, we did happen to have a lot of players who were still especially good at those former off-tank heroes like Sigma, D.Va, and Zarya. So we still sometimes use the term to refer to a general pool of heroes from back in Overwatch 1. And in this case, the hero of choice for Max is Sigma. And Sigma compositions have been something that Crazy Raccoon have been playing for a while, alongside Mizuki, but they use a very special composition against Twisted Minds this time around. The DPS lineup for Crazy Raccoon is special, because their hitscan player in particular, Stalker, just so happens to also be one of the best flex DPS players in the world. He is a hyper-flexible player that is well known for having managed to play every single hero on the DPS roster in a professional match. He's kind of an extreme outlier, a lot like Proper, the flex DPS player for Zeta Division. So what this means is that Crazy Raccoon can comfortably pull out this double flex DPS composition, in this case Mei Pharah, and this is an incredibly rare lineup that I can really only recall seeing in this specific match at the tier 1 level, at least in recent history. So what does this composition actually accomplish? Well, to begin the first round, you have Crazy Raccoon on defense and Twisted on the attack. Twisted open up with a Symmetra Brawl composition because they are expecting the Mizuki and the Mei from Crazy Raccoon. Normally, they'd want to play D.Va, but Mizuki Mei do an excellent job of completely shutting D.Va down. If you want to learn more about that in particular, I do actually have a video on that. Anyway, TVNT doesn't want to be smited by the anti-D.Va composition, so he runs the Symmetra, which is definitely stronger, into the Sig Mizuki Mei. But there's a bit of an issue for Twisted either way because they are running a Symmetra composition, and Symmetra, as I mentioned before, has a pretty terrible matchup into Pharah. And you see how this kind of plays out in the first fight, with Crazy Raccoon giving the first corner and section of space to Twisted for free as they work to poke Twisted out. And it's quite difficult for Twisted to turn this next corner. Heesung's Pharah does happen to be grazed by Quartz's Sojourn, but also Twisted lose UB's Symmetra early on due to Stalker's Maywall. Although it might not appear obvious, Twisted lost that fight partially because they had to be so careful about pushing forward and forcing a brawl, even though that's their win condition in this matchup. They by far have more brawl potential and should be able to just run over the Sigma on the side of CR, but they seemingly can't because there's so much pressure exhibited on them while they're swinging the corner. And so, what is the obvious solution to that problem? Just go D.Va, right? Then your backline doesn't have to worry about the walk-up and can swing the corner a lot easier. Except now TVNT is playing D.Va against the exact composition that also counters her the most. The next fight begins with both teams using Kitsune at the corner, and Max uses his Flux, which does land but doesn't result in a kill, as Twisted Minds manage to keep Quartz alive. That doesn't really matter though, since, as expected, TVNT dies at record speed on the D.Va, forcing a reset for Twisted Minds. Twisted Minds try again, first a TP to close the distance to corner and stage on the high ground, then an opening with Speed Ring comboed with Sojourn Overclock. This is completely cancelled out though by Chorung's Mizuki ult, forcing Twisted to retreat. They try again, this time with Orbital Ray, but that is directly countered by Stalker's Blizzard that not only zones out the entire corner, but also manages to find a few targets, including TVNT's D.Va, who was chained and promptly frozen. That makes for another Crazy Raccoon fight win. I think you can really start to see Crazy Raccoon's idea here. It's just the absolute peak of drafting and compositional choices. They really set up the perfect trap for Twisted Minds and were able to construct a composition capable of beating nearly everything Twisted could possibly throw at them. This is even considering the fact that Twisted used the incredibly valuable Bastion ban going into this map. Like, now CR have Bastion available for the rest of the series as well, which is absolutely massive. I like the response from Quartz here to move from Sojourn over to Freya. It was just too late though. Heesung finds the opener onto Simple's Kiriko, who also happened to be close to Kitsune, and then Quartz, as Freya will do, manages to take out the Pharah pretty easily. After that comes the responding flux from Max's Sigma that hits Yubi's Symmetra, who does manage to live. Twisted Minds take a moment to stabilize and get their Kiriko back before returning to swing the corner once more. Heesung for Crazy Raccoon returns on Symmetra to get back faster, as well as be able to shred the opposing diva in overtime. It would be an ultimate-centric fight for this last chance on first point.
正面のアングルを取りました。キツネマシン D は分断したこの一瞬がさあただ自爆に関してはうまくなるなることができたが上からのレイン結界フォトンバリアによって分断されてはいるものの戦い方としてはクレイジーラ君の方が優勢かいやただこれギリギリポジションタップ後ろから目取った曜日の立ち位置を全員でフォーカス曜日は後かしたがただこれは3対3カートを察知しなくてはいけない今を当てTBLT はかなり限界が近いメックが剥がれたクローズに対して球を当て続けそして TBLT 本体をもぎ取った上でオーバータイムフィニッシュ第一曲がり角で止めましたクレイジーラクーン
Crazy Raccoon have left themselves with a relatively easy attack, just 82 meters on the first point. Out of desperation, Twisted Minds play whatever the hell this is. At this point, the only explanation might be Kiriko fatigue for Simple, because why are we playing Zenyatta over the best support hero in the game? This went about how you would expect it to. つららヘッドショット、少しでも前ラインで守りたいツイステッドマインズからするとあまりにも痛いスキル緊急退避しましたがただこの流れで CR ペロード残り数メートルまで来た戦わざるを得ないツイステッドマインズハイパーリングリング後出し相手のゴーを仕掛けたソーピードからの仕掛け2ストレート TBLT ももう苦しいかいやもうダメージが曜日が崩されそして TBLT 残るはクオース柱裏完勝することはできないサーキットロイヤルクレイジーラクーン取り切っての So clearly, simply forcing Max into play on a brawlier map wouldn't be enough to make the Symmetra compositions work for Twisted Minds. With that in mind, they take it to yet another brawl-oriented map, King's Row, this time getting rid of the Pharah that caused them so much trouble the past two maps. If anything should be able to save the former world champions, this would surely be it. To begin, it's another Sigma composition on defense from Crazy Raccoon. This is what Max loves to play after all, and they position on the high ground, looking not to repeat their mistakes from the World Finals defeat against Twisted Minds last year. Seriously, it was pretty bad. But Twisted Minds have a plan this time, one that rivals that of Crazy Raccoon's the previous map, and that is to lock Reinhardt. Although this might seem like a bit of a gold-coded strategy, it's genuinely pretty amazing in this very specific context, trust me. Okay, I'm not insane. Twisted Minds begin by walking the first choke and making their way up to the high ground using Yubi's teleporter. A Maywall from the side of Crazy Raccoon tries to slow Twisted down, but it doesn't really work out too well. TVNT throws up the barrier and simply walks at Crazy Raccoon, and there is absolutely nothing that CR can do about it. Heesung's Mei is backed into a corner and forced to use Ice Block. Funny Astro on the Lucio eventually finishes him off. Crazy Raccoon do barely stabilize, but that push up on the high ground did so much damage and forced so many resources that CR really have no way of re-engaging while Twisted simply capture the point. They are forced to sacrifice themselves in order to try and contest, but to no avail. And with that, the first point goes quickly in Twisted's favor. The Reinhardt composition absolutely excels at closing distance and brawling against slower compositions that can't really match up to the Reinhardt. Good examples would be many Sigma and Zarya compositions. So Twisted here used this Reinhardt composition to clear Crazy Raccoon from their initial high ground position, and it forced so many resources out of CR that it just resulted in a straight fight win. That's all there is to it. For the first to second point, Crazy Raccoon haven't made any swaps yet since they are relying on their ultimate rotation to win this fight. UB throws down a fake TP and Twisted Minds push forward. CR respond with a Flux and Kitsune, while TM counter that in turn with their own sound barrier and then an overclock from Quartz. It's a messy fight, with each team managing to find some kills, but with TM having lost their Reinhardt, they're in a tough position. Still though, because of the amount of space Crazy Raccoon had to give to the Reinhardt composition, Twisted Minds actually made some very reasonable cart progress off of this fight, meaning it wasn't really a total loss, even if the fight does eventually burn out for them. And you'll see this come into play for the next fight as well, when TM's window forces a complete disengage from Crazy Raccoon, and then the sim wall forces even more. Also, I have no idea what Chorong was doing here on the Mizuki. I mean, like, yeah, we're angle maxing, I guess, but like, I don't know about this one. It's particularly brutal since the Sanctuary does nothing in terms of stopping the cart, so Twisted just run off with it for free. Eventually, Crazy Raccoon catch a mistake. Yubi's Symmetra is taken down by Chorong's Mizuki, and TVNT's Reinhardt does hit the Shatter, but he's under too much pressure to actually follow up on it and falls to the pressure from CR's DPS. This is great and all for CR, except the fact that they're kinda losing these fights still. They technically won 2 fights in a row, yet the cart is now at the end of second point. So they kinda can't kite anymore, otherwise they just give up the point. So they have to stand their ground now. Twisted began the next by rotating through the left lane and then using a rotation TP from UB to flip the map on Crazy Raccoon. This puts Simple in the perfect position to use his Baptiste window, which immediately results in a responding Flux from Max. This is combined with the artillery from Stalker for Crazy Raccoon to help obtain 2 kills. Off of that combo, Crazy Raccoon stay in it, and they actually get a good fight for once. That's short-lived though. Stalker's Bastion is caught out and Crazy Raccoon are quickly overrun by the pace of the Reinhardt composition, especially with the help of an aggressive beat. There's really nothing you can do to halt the Reinhardt unless you have a huge ult bank, which Crazy Raccoon simply did not. That's second point for Twisted Minds. For the third, a window on cart allows Twisted to actually swing with the window. Yeah, you can just throw it on the cart and it moves with it. Pretty cool, but definitely a bit niche. And after the corner is swung, a sim wall keeps Twisted Minds' momentum going, with a Chorong Mizuki ult to try and halt it. But Crazy Raccoon learned the hard way that they simply cannot out-brawl Twisted Minds on their composition, even if their ult banks are about even. Twisted Minds have had their breakthrough, and they are back in the series.
もう逃げられないのがストーカーの立ち位置。さあ押し込んだ。ツイステッドマインズ。
If you are enjoying this video, make sure to check out my Twitch. I co-stream Overwatch esports matches over there. My schedule is available on my Discord server, so be sure to join up. I also have a second channel where I post the most exciting WCS matches that I've covered live, so that you can experience them with my commentary after the fact. And if you want to support the continued creation of these videos, consider becoming a member, and if not, even just leaving a random comment can help. These longer ones especially are almost comical undertakings in terms of the size. I think this script is almost 13,000 words long, so if you want to see more, I appreciate any help that I can get. And of course, my question for today is, do you believe that Wrecking Ball is strong in the current meta? Anyway, back onto the video. Reinhardt is an inherently risky hero. He can be counter-swapped easily, and thus it can be a poor decision to run him on defense when your opponent can counter-swap at any time as the attackers. The defending team does not have the same liberty, so it makes sense as to why TVNT would swap over to Sigma to begin Twisted's defense for the round, even if that might provide Crazy Raccoon with a matchup that they'd very much prefer. Crazy Raccoon, who have an understanding the power that Symmetra can provide in a brawl mirror, particularly on attack to exhibit control over high grounds, decide to mirror. The main difference is having their hitscan player on Mei, while Twisted have theirs on Bastion. And of course, the backlines differ between these teams as well, the Baptiste being a much riskier pick from Simple in particular. The round begins like a game of chess. Crazy Raccoon make a rotation TP underneath to rotate up to the high ground, and then Twisted Minds respond with a direct TP to counter-rotate to the opposite high ground to pressure. This makes the rotation much more difficult for Crazy Raccoon, who are now somewhat stuck. So they hit the counter-counter rotation through the building underneath and hit a rotation TP up to the high ground window near the back of point, completely flipping the map. Oh, but don't worry, because Twisted Minds hit the counter rotation with a TP to then claim the high ground space that Crazy Raccoon ceded in order to pressure CR's attempt to force point with Max's Sigma. But no, it's not over yet. To prevent Twisted Minds from punishing, Max takes the existing TP back up to the high ground before it expires, while Stalker's Mei takes his place. Then, with the help of Max's Sigma, Crazy Raccoon counter rotate to look to combat Twisted Minds over the high ground space they currently occupy while they continue to force the point. This actually works, and does force Twisted Minds to concede quite a bit of valuable space. Yubi attempts to retake Hotel now by using his TP to fight Hisong's Symmetra, but he ends up losing that personal battle. Funny Astra's Lucio comes to clean up Hisong though, so it ends up even again, but then even more trades occur with both teams losing their main support players. Vigilante's Kiriko and Stalker's Mei narrowly escape their pursuers on point, and then Max's Sigma drops in to take their place. With plenty of time, Stalker walks up to the high ground and takes up an incredibly valuable angle, making it difficult for Twisted to walk up through main. Meanwhile, Hisong's Symmetra returns from spawn to control the hotel. Crazy Raccoon now exercise control over all 3 lanes of the map. Realizing the threat of Stalker's Mei on the walk-up, Yubi uses his TP in an attempt to clear that space. Stalker anticipates this though and uses his Blizzard as a response, managing to freeze and kill the Bastion of Twisted Minds. In a desperate move, Twisted use their window, but it's too late. Crazy Raccoon pull through in one of the most beautiful fights I've maybe ever seen in my history with this game. For both teams to make so many consecutive correct decisions in a matchup like this is such a rarity, but when you do see it happen, it makes for some of the most fun you can have viewing this game. It really is incredible. Well, anyway, Twisted decide to stay in the Sigma mirror going into the second point, which Crazy Raccoon will, of course, graciously accept. CR begin with a rotation TP to send Stalker in for a sneaky Mei wall that catches a few members of Twisted, but Twisted are able to live with the help of their sound barrier. But with that forced out, Max's Sigma is free to use Flux, and he does so, catching Yubi's Symmetra. From there, CR clean it up for another win. This is where the Reinhardt comes back into play, and I personally agree with it here from TM. I think it's smart to bring it out after Crazy Raccoon have become more attached to playing the Sigma composition on their attack. Twisted Minds are so ridiculously good, and this next play really shows why, because they purposely play passive and bait Crazy Raccoon to use their TP first. The moment Yubi hears the TP being placed down for Crazy Raccoon, he uses his own to flip the map and also position his team on the high ground for their Baptiste window. This completely ruins Crazy Raccoon's attempted play and wins the fight for TM off of one relatively weak ultimate.
高台 TP これはしかしここは TP で変わって1点制クオーテなんというリアクション
It's now a battle of ultimates for the next, and Crazy Raccoon have quite the advantage. It begins with a Max Flux, which is countered by Funny Astra's Beat. The Flux is also comboed with CR's Blizzard, but it doesn't really connect. Because of that, Twisted can counter, first with TVNT's Reinhardt finding Chorong, then Quartz's Overclock taking Hisong's Symmetra. Twisted defied the odds and also staggered out Stalker's Mei, making for a slower reset for Crazy Raccoon. Now it is finally time for Crazy Raccoon to switch up their composition to counter the Reinhardt, opting for a standard Ramattra pick and Venture, who is good against Symmetra in particular. Stalker's Venture gets the Tidal Blast, bursts out of the ground, and finds Simple's Baptiste early, just in too aggressive of a position while also having his ultimate ready to go. Funny Astro manages to trade Stalker, but the damage was already done. Twisted were wiped, and Crazy Raccoon managed to make their way to 3rd point. And before we move on to that, I can talk about Baptiste a little bit here. Baptiste is in a weird spot right now because he isn't terrible as a hero, but also Kiriko does everything that he does just significantly better, for the most part. One of those key things is survivability. Kiriko probably lives in that situation up against the Venture with both TP and Suzu. Simple is likely running the Baptiste as a very compositionally specific choice, especially intended for the Reinhardt comp, where he'll have more burst healing than Kiriko to keep the Reinhardt alive, and that will also enable him to build Baptiste window at somewhat ridiculous speeds. It's a greedy, but also somewhat valid strategy that has paid off for Twisted here and there throughout the map. On 3rd to begin, both teams mirror their Symmetra walls, with Quartz's Sojourn coming out with the first kill for Twisted Minds onto Hisung's Symmetra. Losing Symmetra early is a bit of a death sentence in these matchups, as she accounts for a lot of your mid to late fight damage. I'd say she might be the most valuable target to take down early for both of these teams. Quartz strikes again. A kill onto Stalker's Venture forces Crazy Raccoon to continue to play it very slow. TVNT's Reinhardt plays forward, threatening to shatter, so Crazy Raccoon focus on breaking his shield before attempting to push. When the ultimates do finally come through, Twisted Minds commits a boatload and pretty much burns their entire ultimate economy for one free fight win. But that's really bad for Twisted, since there's still a minute left on the clock. 3 ultimates up against 1. This is Crazy Raccoon's golden chance to take it to extra rounds on a map that Twisted undoubtedly need to win. First, a TP from Hisung to help clear the high ground, but Max's Ramatra falls dangerously low before Crazy Raccoon are able to commit, and disaster strikes as CR lose their tank extremely early on. A panicked Kitsune is dropped from Vigilante's Kiriko to keep the fight alive, and Twisted opt to try and kite it out rather than using their Symmetra wall. This, unfortunately, actually results in the death of Funny Astro's Lucio, who died during that disengage. That makes for a chance for CR to get back into this. Now, the re-engage from Twisted Minds off of Yubi's Symmetra wall. Max's Ramatra also respawns around now, but is still yet to return. Crazy Raccoon play very patiently, not wanting to die before Max returns, and to keep Hisung's Symmetra alive, the Tidal Blast is used. To keep the fight going further, Hisung uses Simwall, and now with the ultimates, Crazy Raccoon absolutely has the advantage. Somehow, some way, Crazy Raccoon, they did it. They played the 4v5 well enough to get themselves the advantage. Twisted attempt to touch, but due to the annihilation from Max, it'd be nearly impossible to stop Crazy Raccoon now. Fortunately for Twisted Minds, Crazy Raccoon can no longer win. They can only play for a draw due to the time bank disparity. Twisted must attack once more and only need 1 tick, which is extremely difficult for CR to defend, even though the time bank is cut in half at around only 2 minutes. This time, Twisted go for a different strategy, opting for Catchgen to start in an attempt to throw Crazy Raccoon off, and the initial pressure from the Bastion is suffocating for Crazy Raccoon. Quartz on the Bastion nearly finds the pick on the Cassidy, but Stalker got a Suzu that saved his life. Quartz also manages to force the Ice Block out of CR's Mei, leaving CR without many of their key resources. TVNT's Ramatra simply runs up and gets in Max's face. Max's Sigma is forced to be on point since they cannot allow a tick for Twisted Minds, and because of this constant pressure and the absolute requirement for Crazy Raccoon to touch, they end up sacrificing Max in an effort to continue contesting. Crazy Raccoon have learned now that this match is by no means theirs to win for free, and that even in a disadvantageous meta, Twisted Minds are still absolutely some of the best in the world. Crazy Raccoon make an incredibly interesting choice in map that actually matters quite a bit in the long run for this match, so it's worth taking a moment to explain what's actually going on here when Crazy Raccoon choose New Junk City, one of the brawliest maps in the game. So you'd probably think of this as a poor choice. After all, Suravasa is in the map pool as the other flashpoint option, and it plays to the strengths of Junbin, who could come back in on ball. But there are some important map choice rules that particularly matter in first to 4 series that you wouldn't normally see in an Overwatch esports match. You see, in the map pool, there are 5 total modes: Control, Hybrid, Escort, Push, and Flashpoint. Each of these modes must be played once before you can loop around and replay a mode. Also, you cannot, under any circumstances, replay the same map. Now, in a typical first to 3 series, you are most likely never repeating a mode. The only way you possibly could is if you have a draw occur and also manage to play a very, very close game. We have had a few 6-map matches, but they are rare. But that doesn't really apply to first to 4, which is the typical format specifically for grand finals matches. With that said, there is a much higher chance that the match goes beyond 5 maps, so the teams need to take that into consideration when choosing which modes or maps that they will play. So far, Illios under Control, Circuit Royale under Escort, and King's Row under Hybrid have been played. Those 3 maps are completely unavailable for the rest of the series. So let's think about Crazy Raccoon's choice of map now and look at this from their perspective. The 2 remaining modes are Push and Flashpoint. Both Push maps are decently good for Crazy Raccoon. Meanwhile, it can be argued that Suravasa is a much better map for Crazy Raccoon than New Junk City. Now, it makes sense to rule out picking a push map because, just thinking logically here, if Crazy Raccoon theoretically win this next map and then Twisted have the next pick, they are forced to pick between 2 push maps that are both completely fine for Crazy Raccoon. This plays in Crazy Raccoon's favor. So now Crazy Raccoon need to decide between New Junk City and Suravasa. New Junk City is a very enclosed, brawly map, something Twisted Minds would absolutely love for their Symmetra Brawl compositions. The line of thought here is that if Crazy Raccoon pick Suravasa now, then if the match goes to a 6th map or further, which it very likely will do, then the map pool soft resets, allowing Twisted Minds to loop back around to pick New Junk City, meaning they would get that map pick anyways later on. So, because Crazy Raccoon realized that they are kinda doomed to play New Junk City either way, they pick it themselves, and then they ban Twisted Mind's most important hero, Symmetra. It's honestly just great drafting here, because New Junk City is inevitable either way, but by picking it themselves, they get the first ban and can fight on their terms, even if it isn't the best map for them. The responding ban from Twisted Minds is a Kiriko ban. This hurts the backline of Crazy Raccoon a little bit. I suppose forcing them into an awkward Juno Brig could be considered a disadvantage, but this ban really ended up hurting Twisted Minds themselves even more, and you'll see why in a moment. To begin, it's a Symmetra Brawl mirror. Max can no longer force Sigma since he'd just get run over even harder on New Junk City. UB, forced off of his preferred Symmetra, is now on Mei. It's playable, but definitely not preferred. The first kill does actually come from Quartz onto Hisung's Mei, who was truly in an absurdly split position. This gave Twisted the initial point capture, although Crazy Raccoon weren't out of it yet. CR pushed forward aggressively for trades, and even with the help of a Mei wall and Immo field, TVNT's Ramatra still gets out-pressured by CR. Simple's Baptiste is also run over and eliminated, and then comes the swap that truly glues things together, with Hisung swapping from Mei over to Tracer. Normally, trying to get value from Pulse Bomb, or even from Tracer in general, can be a bit more difficult into Kiriko, but once the Kiriko is removed from the equation, the power level of Tracer raises quite considerably. Even though it's pretty uncommon to see a DPS lineup as strange as Tracer Bastion, in this specific scenario with both Symmetra and Kiriko banned, it makes for an excellent way to exploit the clear weaknesses in Twisted's composition, and Crazy Raccoon absolutely do exploit those weaknesses.
少し前目の立ち位置でハイパーリングを使ってから見ました。さあしかしここは手前側ウォールで一度弾いた上でイモータル DB ドラン対決。
チョロン生き残ったのがかなり良かったですね。そしてそこからバトンタッチされたヒーさんがしっかりと切り返しした印象です。
マッチが終えと移行しました。
ただ遠距離から
どこから行くんだ。 やいやー今までだまさかの支援火力。
いやー素晴らしい判断でした。復帰には
Third point is about to unlock. Twisted Minds are now down to their final chance with Crazy Raccoon at map point. And with 2 swaps comes the turning point. Simple swaps to Moira? So, why did he do that?
マインズというチームにいます。
Okay, so how did that happen? Well, let's talk about it. It all begins on this third flashpoint. The compositions have switched up a bit. On an open point like this one, Catchton is stronger, so Crazy Raccoon are running it. Twisted Minds on their new composition take their first fight with an opening overclock from Quartz. He deals quite a bit of damage to the opposing Ramatra Max, who is now very, very low. At the same time, Yubi's Tracer makes a pretty solid move, looking to force point. This means Hisung must pull back to deal with Yubi, creating space for the rest of Twisted Minds. Unfortunately, Yubi does kinda just fall over and die. It's like he knows exactly what he needs to do on Tracer, he just does not have any ability to execute it perfectly. But getting a mid-job done was good enough, with Quartz able to find the rail shot on Hisung's Tracer for the trade, and then 2 more kills. First a solo kill on the kitty, then clean up on Max's Ramatra. Somehow, Twisted Minds won a fight. Also, that Moira from Simple, it's odd, but does make it a bit harder for Hisung's Tracer to easily walk all over Simple, at the expense of having a valuable ultimate, and at the expense of actually having any utility whatsoever. But, you know, Twisted Minds somehow make it work. But, like, seriously, this hero has absolutely no ultimate. It's terrible. Like, look at this. This is doing absolutely nothing. It's so ass. And, unfortunately for Twisted 2, they lose Funny Astro's Lucio to an airstrike. But somehow, Yubi the hero comes to the rescue with a nice little kill onto Vigilante's Juno. And yeah, in this composition, there's nothing, genuinely nothing protecting Vigilante. He's just helpless on Juno against the Tracer. And now, a moment of silence for some real gameplay. Okay, anyway, on to point 4 now, and Crazy Raccoon have just decided not to patch the gaping hole in their composition because they have ultimates. Yes, surely this will be the largest kitty ult of all time. It won't. The Moira is also the teeniest bit better on this point. The small rooms are comfortable for her orbs at least, and make it easier for her to, you know, heal her teammates in groups. Simple escapes the Malga Slam with Fade, and while this is all happening, one of the dumbest Tracer kills of all time is in progress. Yubi blinks out from the side lane and unloads a clip into Stalker's Bastion. He reloads, and then he unloads another clip into Stalker's Bastion. He reloads and then unloads another clip into Stalker's Bastion. And then he reloads and unloads another clip into Stalker's Bastion. Then he reloads and unloads another clip into Stalker's Bastion. And then he reloads and unloads another clip into Stalker's Bastion. And then he reloads. I can't speak anymore. Stalker fucking dies. This is slop. It's terrible, and after we just witnessed some of the best Overwatch ever played, but, you know, the crowd's loving it, at least, because Twisted is winning with Moira while Yubi's on fucking Tracer. It's, I don't know. Okay, so surely on the 5th and final point, with Crazy Raccoon on a real composition, they might be able to win. Well, it begins with a Yubi Pulse Bomb. And then, after that, the Cash App hits for the backline of Crazy Raccoon because Vigilante just decides Speed Ring isn't all that important and throws it out for no reason. Like, there's no logical reason to do this. Max clearly does not want to go in, and Twisted Minds can now just push with their own ults for free without CR being able to kite. This results in Chorong's Brigitte getting caught out and dying to Max, and then Yubi's Tracer finishes off Vigilante. So, another fight win for Twisted Minds. Okay. Crazy Raccoon, they have ultimates. Like, surely this is good for them. Twisted Minds have 3 ults, but one of them isn't even real, so, like, you know, easily a 1 fight for CR, right? Well, first comes the Orbital Ray and Overclock, neither of which find anything due to the sound barrier from Funny Astro. Max then throws down his cage and is able to catch Funny Astro's Lucio, and then Shorong's Brigitte rally is also forced out of Crazy Raccoon somehow. He really does not want to use this here, but he's backed into a corner and forced to, I guess. This does grant Crazy Raccoon a fight win, but, you know, and it's just a really expensive one. And yeah, we also did miss some gameplay earlier. Let's get a replay on that.
Surrender to my will.
You know what? That might have been the most value I've seen Coalescence get since 6v6, so I have to give Simple some credit, at least. He managed to, like, heal TVNT the same amount that a Suzu and a few Ofuda would have been able to, so that's pretty good! So now, Crazy Raccoon are kind of left ultless. Both teams have upcoming Pulse Bombs, but Twisted Minds have the only real ultimate, and Overclock coming up for Quartz. It begins with UB's Tracer forcing Point to create space. He backs off once CR come to mark him. UB makes the rotation around to look for an aggressive flank, and oh my goodness, this man just won the map for Twisted Minds single-handedly. This map just has the same energy as like Cape Verde's 2-2 equalizer against Argentina. Like, what is this?
シンプルがここでワンピックファックタックヨビーさあこれで絶対絶命追い詰められたのはクレイジーラク残り2名マックスとビジランテしか残っていない状態でのオーバータイムオーバーランで入るものの踏みつけは発生せず渦に閉じ込めツイステッドマインズマップカウントをイーブンへと戻します。
いやー強すぎるツイステッドマインズ。
I know I'll get the questions in the comments, so I may as well address it now. If you're wondering why Moira is considered bad, and why we don't play her anymore at the tier 1 level, the root cause is the switch from 6v6 to 5v5. We used to have rush compositions with Moira Lucio backlines, and they were pretty damn good. Coalescence was still a pretty weak ult back then, but the catch is that you could build it in less than 30 seconds, maybe even faster than that, when you had 2 tanks that you're pocketing, and both of them gave you full ult charge. Moira's whole niche was to output big healing numbers while a team stacks in order to farm Coalescence as fast as possible. Nowadays, you can't play that way because she builds her ult at the same speed as everyone else, so she's pretty terrible outside of very situational circumstances. Simple's Moira swap was selfish, but it paid off. It was for the sole purpose of dying less at the expense of his utility and ultimate, and it ended up working out. I would not recommend copying what he did here though, especially if Kiriko isn't banned. Well, anyway, the map pick nearly paid off for Crazy Raccoon, but somehow Twisted Minds did their thing and managed to flip the map to even up the series, keeping it incredibly competitive. Crazy Raccoon have their choice of push map now. Both are decent for them, but they make a bit of a controversial decision, opting for Runasapi, as well as keeping Max in the lineup. New Queen Street could absolutely allow Crazy Raccoon to try out their ball compositions again, but at the same time, Twisted have been able to deal with ball before on push by forcing control over the bot even while winning less fights than their opponent. And you see this in their performance against T1 last year during Worlds. That is covered in one of my other crazy long videos that you should definitely check out if you haven't already. The bans for this map are Cassidy and Mizuki. The Cassidy ban kind of feels like a blind attempt at weakening Twisted Minds. It's a pretty weak ban in my personal opinion, but at least Crazy Raccoon hold on to some of their more valuable bans for later. The Mizuki ban, on the other hand, gets rid of the Mizuki Kiriko backlines that have been prevalent for Crazy Raccoon throughout this series, so I feel that Twisted Minds set themselves up well for this map. The Mizuki ban makes it much easier for Twisted to now run their preferred diva. I assume the Ramatra pick from Max is kind of a weak attempt at countering this. I don't even know why Reaper is here as well. Crazy Raccoon are really relying on their Bastion winning them this map, but Twisted Minds can match the Bastion pressure with their Symmetra Lucio Bastion core, which can 1. Shoot back, and 2. Also has great movement in its own way. So yeah, this goes poorly for Crazy Raccoon. First fight, Max falls over and dies to poke before anything interesting can happen. That ends the fight instantly and gives Twisted the first corner fight for checkpoint. Heesung does actually swap onto a real hero that is a little better, and then he dies. Yeah, he kinda just gets hit with the defense matrix and mowed down. Playing against both Bastion and Diva is a bit of a nightmare for Heesung. It gets worse. Chorong decides to be a bad kitty and airdrop Stalker's Bastion into an extremely vulnerable position for fun, I guess? I really have no explanation for this, and it's just not even excusable as a flanking strategy of some sort, since the leading strategy in Catch-Gen when you have Kitsune ready to go is to, you know, drop your Bastion inside of the Kitsune. So Stalker is just split from like the one place he absolutely needs to be and dies a sad death on the flank while his team completely wastes Kitsune, since the fight should really be lost due to Stalker's death. But somehow, Crazy Raccoon do keep the fight going, even though they give checkpoint, and then they just lose anyway, so yeah, that didn't matter. Stalker, after acting as a sacrifice for Chorong, decides to swap over to a more traditional Symmetra counter, the Venture, with Chorong back on Lucio. This is really the perfect case scenario for Twisted, since they have Crazy Raccoon entirely lost on what they should do. It's just the panic swaps. Now, with no real ult bank, Crazy Raccoon are forced to take a hyper-aggressive dry fight to try and get some ultimates out of Twisted, which, well, that is what I thought they would be doing. The Sim Wall and Beat come out and, oh, Max used Annihilation! You see, this is incredibly confusing to me, because if Crazy Raccoon are ult tracking, like, whatsoever, they should know they basically have no shot of winning into Beat and Simwall unless they find a miracle pick. And of course, no miracle pick had been found early fight, and either way, the best Crazy Raccoon could do is get both Simwall and Beat out of Twisted Minds and just, you know, sacrifice the fight from there, which they did manage to do that, except for some odd reason, Max uses his Annihilation anyway, in this completely unwinnable situation. And it's just, I don't know, Crazy Raccoon are absolutely panicking, and this just shows the extent of that. Another panic swap from Stalker, this time from Venture over to Mei. He wants to try and counterpick the Diva, I guess, but without the help of Mizuki, it really won't help much on its own. It also really doesn't help that Quartz's Bastion can shred Stalker's Mei walls with ease. I think it's a fine swap, it's just not the absolute solution, if that makes any sense. I really think that anything except for just mirroring Symmetra is gonna feel really hard for Crazy Raccoon. Finally, a good move is made from Crazy Raccoon. Max's Ramattra played forward, baited the Kitsune, and then was able to kite and chill while the Kitsune expired. It was just too early from Simple on the side of TM, but I think TM with the momentum were just a little overconfident and thought they could force another silly mistake at a CR. After that, rather than continuing to fight an uphill battle, and I mean like literally TM are trying to shoot up a hill here, they decide to back off and take a fight near the checkpoint where the map geometry won't be so one-sided in Crazy Raccoon's favor, and this works really well for Twisted Minds, who are able to take yet another fight. This is something that, if you can, is really good to incorporate into your push games. If you're on an organized team especially, definitely look to make plays like this. There are a lot of points on push maps that are incredibly favorable to the defenders, to the point where attacking is almost a death sentence. So don't force that. Just back up and give that teeny bit of bot progress in order to give yourself an actual fair fight that you can win. Sure, that bit of bot progress is annoying to lose and might feel kinda wrong to do, but if you lose the fight in the forward position, you're gonna lose a lot more progress than that. So it's better to take a tiny short-term hit to your progress in order to win the fight as a whole. Crazy Raccoon finally get back on their feet in the next fight, starting with Hisung's kill onto Yubi during a corner fight. I also want to point out that before that kill, Crazy Raccoon did a perfect job of baiting yet another Kitsune out of Simple before easily kiting around the corner, completely voiding it of its value without needing to use a counter ult. After that, Twisted hold on to their ults, opting to just use them during their next fight at the corner. Crazy Raccoon keep up the momentum of their counterattack. Even while losing Chorong's Lucio early, they get by using Kitsune for Simwall and Invigilante's Kiriko, also killing Yubi's Symmetra. Max's Ramattra keeps it alive with an actually valuable Annihilation, and Crazy Raccoon make it to the checkpoint to keep the map relatively close at least. Hisung finally chooses the correct hero in the spawn room. It did take him a little bit, and now this will also force TVNT off of the Diva onto Ramattra after the upcoming fight, because let's be real here, like, who is insane enough to play Diva Brawl against Ram, Mei, Symmetra Brawl? Like, it's almost bad as Mizuki Mei at that point. And yes, this finally means that Crazy Raccoon have their shit together and have an opportunity to win this game, but it really just comes down to which team can play the mirror matchup better. The only catch? Twisted have a massive starting advantage.
無理やりエリアを広げたブリザード。いや中身がパナソングを持っていくことに成功。いやストーカーよく耐えました。クリオフリーズで取り残されていたそのストーカー。ブリザードをカウンターとして使っています。
ただこれはクォーツが勢いを持っていると何が起こるか
パーフェクティティ。ストックポイントに対してはディスラプター。しかし縦割りの方と一方的に車線の通る水線ともクを集中させていく。飛び交うコース。オーエスさえケアできれば。クォーツが振り付けてくれ。いやしかしこの時間は与えないコース。いやそれでもマッチとも洗えないでしょう。逃げ切る。大爆を回収し。全ての動きに意味があるレールガンの連射。これでマッチポイントツイステッドマインズ。
As was beautifully stated by the Japanese casters, this is now match point for Twisted Minds, who have taken the lead with a 3-map winning streak. 2 maps in a row now. Crazy Raccoon have been thrown off in terms of their compositions, and trying to rely on Hisung alone just to counter-swap to whatever he thinks can beat the Symmetra may not be enough for Crazy Raccoon to secure the win. And so, he arrives. Junbin is back. After 4 maps of his absence, the incredible ball player and shot caller for Crazy Raccoon returns to the field, with the map pick being Oasis. Control can be chosen again since the map pool soft resets for the 6th map of the series, and Crazy Raccoon go for Oasis in particular since it locks out Antarctic for the rest of the series, which is the best Brawl map in the entire remaining pool. The choices in map are one of the primary reasons I think Crazy Raccoon were even able to put up a fight in this match. It really has been an excellent set of decisions from Coach Moon, and alongside this excellent choice of maps comes one of the most valuable bans Crazy Raccoon have been holding on to this entire match, Lucio. Lucio is honestly pretty necessary for Symmetra compositions to function effectively. He's kinda like the glue holding them together. His passive speed allows for effective rotations to either reach the place where you TP from, or to rotate after you travel through the TP. He is also able to peel against flankers, making him incredibly versatile. To better put this into perspective, there were 2 incredibly talented Symmetra teams during Stockholm's World Finals last year, and some of the only maps they lost to the Korean teams were lost when Lucio was banned. Symmetra bans, of course, also hurt. Juno's speed is inconsistent, and she also cannot peel like Lucio can, so she can't match up to the Lucio. And if I even see one person in the comments ask, but what about Mizuki's speed? A part of me will seriously just die inside. I think you can figure that one out. You got this. I trust. Anyway, that's the predicament that Twisted Minds are facing, but they get a bit of a break since the sub-map that they're on is one of the most brawl-oriented of the 3, meaning Junbin can't effectively pull out the ball just yet. And that's great for Twisted, who are able to start on a pocket cast composition that doesn't really have too much issue dealing with this Ramatra catch gen from Crazy Raccoon. The Pharah pick from Hisung, while being completely countered as well, is just silly. Crazy Raccoon really should have learned from the last map that they're better off mirroring with a good Brawl composition rather than trying to force these weird Ram catch gen comps while Twisted have most of their preferred heroes and can, deal with it just fine. Like, even Hisung moving over to the Tracer could maybe help make this slightly better, and you could try and force the ball too. Really, anything is better than just playing directly into Twisted's hand. Unfortunately though, Crazy Raccoon really just do concede this point without a fight. Twisted Minds managed to take it 100-0 without much worry. So now, Crazy Raccoon truly cannot afford to lose. It's City Center now, a much more open submap that plays much more to the ball composition, so Junbin can finally do what he was subbed in to do. Hisung also goes with Tracer after the TP out of spawn, and this is where Twisted Minds will instantly encounter many problems, because they are running a greedier Kiriko Juno backline that is weaker against ball Tracer dives. Junbin begins by following Twisted's rotation, but taking his time before looking for a hit. He doesn't want to initiate his engage until Twisted attempt to TP somewhere, or just in general attempt to push something. In this case, Twisted paused their rotation, and then right when they throw down the speed ring, that's the trigger for Junbin to go with his first roll through with perfect timing. Twisted were trying to use Yubi's TP to rotate up to take the high ground, but due to Junbin's engage, Simple's Kiriko got split and was eliminated. Junbin fakes an engage next, forcing the flash out of courts, and then he finds Yubi's Symmetra alone and forces his TP. The slam also helps Hisung finish the kill on Yubi. Unfortunately, the play wasn't totally clean from Junbin, so he does die. But he returns relatively quickly with the point still under contention. He wasn't able to directly engage onto the Cassidy, so Junbin shields and backs off, at least positioning himself back behind Twisted for the next hit. Again, he considers a hit by rolling through, but doesn't commit to it. This is something you will see at higher levels that ball players will do quite a bit. You can grapple towards the opponent as if you're gonna slam or roll through, while also still being able to make a conscious decision about whether you will actually commit to that hit or not. This achieves three different things. One, it gives Junbin the option to commit to the engage if there's an opportunity. Two, it gives Junbin information about Twisted Minds as he flies past. And three, fake engages appear real to Twisted Minds, and therefore they may throw out resources and essentially be faked out, kind of like what happened when Quartz used his flash earlier. Anyway, Twisted step off the point, granting CR the first cap. Junbin sees the opportunity to engage since Hisung's Tracer is in, and he rolls through, dealing a bit of damage and getting TP out of the Kiriko. Then, Junbin loops back around for the biggest slam of the match so far, which helps get Yubi's Symmetra low, and Hisung's Tracer finishes that kill. And now, that's finally a first fight win for Crazy Raccoon. It did take a while though. Since CR had control for a while during the previous fight, they make great progress on the point before Twisted can even take their second fight. Junbin positions pretty far back near his team considering he's, on ball, so why is Junbin taking this position that's very passive at the start of the fight? Well, as is the nature of Symmetra, Twisted can make rotations across the map within a few seconds. And because of that, if Junbin positions in a more forward position, it is possible for Twisted Minds to TP past Junbin and avoid the possibility and danger of that first hit altogether. Junbin doesn't want to take the risk of Twisted Minds completely bypassing his initial position, so he takes a super neutral position further back on the field where he can see where Twisted are rotating and then properly react to their TP rotation. This is very different in comparison to playing against non-Symmetra compositions, since you'd usually want to start on some sort of a flank or kind of forward position to really pressure the opponent directly as they walk in. And guess what? Twisted Minds walk up to the choke and immediately TP toward point. Exactly the kind of scenario that Junbin was preparing for. And because of his good positioning, he was able to instantly react and throw down the minefield on the position, killing Quartz super early on. If Junbin were positioned forward, he would not have been able to punish the exit of the TP, which is far easier to punish than the entrance. This minefield also mostly nullifies Simple's Kitsune, which isn't really too useful to Twisted, who can't walk out of that space. And that's a fight win for CR. Twisted had to back off, resetting for next. Now, even though Twisted have their diva to maybe help peel ball tracer dives or to peel against the catch and pressure, the fact is that TVNT's diva cannot do it all on his own. Lucio here would be amazing for Twisted to help peel those ball tracer engages, but Crazy Raccoon shut down that option with the ban. This really just leaves TVNT overwhelmed with too much that he has to do. He cannot deal with both the dives and the Bastion at 100% effectiveness, and this critical weakness is what's allowing Crazy Raccoon's incredible reversal on this map with this new composition. This time, Junbin makes the riskier play to look for a punish on the entrance to the TP. This means that you try and slam or roll through just as or right before the Symmetra team try to use their TP. This is risky, as I mentioned before. I wouldn't recommend going for this play too often, but if you get the timing right, it can find value and even force an ultimate. Here, just as Twisted pop their speed ring and walk through the choke, right before they can use their TP to go anywhere, Junbin hits the slam and Hisung's Tracer was set up to go with him. This doesn't result in much for CR though, and they are also forced to concede the point due to burning all their frontline cooldowns. The re-engages are quick on Ball Tracer though. You have Junbin finding an immediate slam onto an unprotected Yubi who was eliminated, and then both teams clash with their Kitsune and Orbital respectively, with Junbin keeping the pressure up with another slam to kill Quartz. After that, CR can clean up, and then Junbin gets an absolutely brutal stagger on TVNT, leaving him with a completely staggered respawn going into final fight territory. So the advantage of a TP entrance hit, like you just saw, is that you can potentially force an early kill or force an ultimate out of the opposing team if they panic. There's also an element of surprise, but the disadvantage is that they are easier to mess up, which CR actually didn't. But also, even if you do get it right, if you don't get something value out of your opponent, it might not be totally worth it, since while you reset for your next dive, your opponent can force the objective, which in this case earned TM 19% on the point. Also, Twisted Minds kind of plugged the hole in their composition the best they could by replacing Kiriko with Brigitte, but this hurts in its own way since you lose access to the best kit in the game, Kiriko's kind of insane, while also having a subpar backline in terms of Symmetra composition specifically. Normally, in an overtime situation, you'd want to save ball mines to use on point to force your opponent to an incredibly uncomfortable situation because they have to touch, but in this case, CR take a slightly different approach. Due to the TVNT stagger, Twisted are gonna be pretty late and really rushing to contest, so Crazy Raccoon go for the earliest hit imaginable in Twisted spawn to completely throw them off. This results in a massive split that just allows Crazy Raccoon to win the fight easy. When a Brawl composition is completely separated like this, they aren't much of a threat. Crazy Raccoon keep the series alive just a little bit longer.
Junbin has the timing down to perfection. TVNT gonna get back.
They're gonna
in
go
this
deep.
fight. Yeah, it's gonna be a minefield.
Great boop though from Simple, denies the slam, TP forward, but Stalker punishes Quartz left behind. And with Junbin's wrecking ball, maybe they found the answer. Crazy Raccoon undeniable. Force a decisive round with series point against them. They stay alive here on Oasis.
It's gonna be a rally here for Simple. Not gonna be able to keep anybody alive. Bullied off a bit.
The third round is going to be easier for Twisted Minds, so Crazy Raccoon will really have to play their comp well, even with the advantages they have due to the forced Juno Brig from Twisted Minds. Gardens, as a submap, has more usable enclosed spaces that Twisted Minds can use to defend themselves against the Catchgen and the Ball Tracer dives. And you see this in action in their first rotation through the enclosed space that we refer to as Hookah. Twisted make their way through, and now, what is the best response for Junbin? Well, he knows that if Twisted rotate through Hookah, they will likely look for a TP as soon as they reach the opening near point, so the entrance is quite predictable. And so, Junbin can hit a beautiful slam just as Twisted tried to go for their TP. Again, this is risky, and if Junbin were a second late, he'd miss it, but he perfectly lands it for a kill on Quartz.
かなりローテーション早いですね、クレイジーラクーン。
And not only that, but Junbin does it again. This time a super early hit, similar to the one near the end of last point, which completely catches Twisted off guard. And this is also because Quartz is still getting back with his team, so he ends up split while Twisted Minds panic during the hit, and that gives him his second kill of the game.
そして再びパイル打ちかけていく。ここは複数採用。
しかもこれはクォーツだ。
クォーツが取り残されてしまった。
Unfortunately for CR, that's not a win just yet, since they lost their Bastion on the way out of that hit. UB on the sim uses his TP to speed up the rotation through Hookah, but this means that Twisted Minds need to chill and wait for their TP to return before they can make a move. This buys time for Junbin, who takes his time to set up behind, not needing to worry about getting left behind. He does momentarily consider the spawn kill in Quartz, but he decides against it, heading towards the point. The roll through from behind is a bit shaky in quality, but CR are happy as long as they control point. Junbin takes his turn to contest, and when his shields have nearly come off cooldown, he looks for the slam in Hookah. He gets his shield in time, backs off, and lets his team take it from there. The fight continues, Junbin returns, Quartz uses Deadeye, and CR just chill while they wait it out. This unfortunately does flip the point though, which is pretty bad for CR. One of the things ball comps tend to play for on Control is to play a slow and long fight while holding onto the point. By switching between having the frontline ball and Tracer contest, you can be pretty annoying and hold onto the objective for quite a long time, but now a prolonged fight no longer benefits CR, who are no longer in control. It's another pretty basic slam from the hookah, but you can see the problem Junbin is facing, as he can't really go inside of the hookah to directly slam Twisted. And also, targets inside of hookah are difficult to reach for the rest of Crazy Raccoon as well, so there's no follow-up. That's why hiding inside can be an effective approach to deal with the dives from Crazy Raccoon. Junbin spots an opportunity though, Yubi, who is using TP to hold a wide angle. Junbin rolls through, booping Yubi off the TP, with Heesung joining in to find the kill. This is just about the perfect play from Junbin in this situation, and he makes the fight even better with a perfectly timed minefield on top of Simple's Kitsune to cancel it out and splits TVNT's Diva, and TVNT believes he can live, using Bomb only to die anyway. After that, Junbin just uses the time between fights to go for an aggro slam and poke as much as he can. Unfortunately though, since he was on a flank, he couldn't react to the TP from Yubi to the opposite hookah, so he missed the first opportunity of the fight. It becomes a battle between a Kitsune and Orbital Ray, with Crazy Raccoon looking to go aggressive in the mid-fight, and with the help of a catnap, oddly enough, Crazy Raccoon pull through in another as well, although it wasn't as clean. I don't think this was very much of an interesting fight, it was just a mess. But Twisted weren't gonna go down that easy. With their last chance, they do lose TVNT early, but Yubi gets that sim wall down on point, and Twisted are able to group up and stack on point to take the 4v5. Quartz uses Deadeye and manages to catch Stalker's Bastion up on the high ground, and with that key trade, Twisted are able to successfully retake. So now, Crazy Raccoon need to retake themselves to be able to take this to a 7th and final map. It begins with an incredibly early slam from Junbin, who has his slam cancelled by the flash from Quartz. What follows is, well, a huge misplay from Junbin. Very early on, Junbin throws down the mines on point. Against a normal comp, this is fine. This lets you force point and create an overtime scenario where you have the advantage, and it can be genuinely difficult to deal with for your opponent. But this is not a normal comp. Because Junbin expended this so early, Yubi was easily able to use his TP to allow Twisted to play in the opposite hookah instead, which makes these mines completely useless. What makes this even worse is that mines easily could have been used to nullify Simple's Kitsune in the future as well, so now that option is off of the table and Simple can Kitsune for free. Junbin is really good, but he is not perfect by any means. After the TP rotation, both teams use Kitsune, and then Junbin redeems himself by making the map-winning move. One teeny little roll through onto TVNT's Diva that knocks him away from the safety of the hookah and gets him killed. That's it. That one moment wins the map and keeps it alive for Crazy Raccoon.
いやしかし立ち位置を少し変えた両者切ってるバスに TVNT のメックを剥がし切ったが本当に中身が続いてのゲームはどうかさあオーバータイム突入3対5クロスのデッドアイが奇跡を起こす必要がある1キルは十分奇跡ですがこのまま取り切った第7マップへの分厚い壁を自分たちの力で切り開いていきましたクレイジーラクーンさあやってまいりましたフルカウント
Even after all this time, after 6 maps of play, Twisted Minds still have held on to a valuable band that they can play, and that is the Cat. They get rid of the possibility of the Catchin for map number 7, choosing Suravasa as the final map. This really goes to show how the map selections paid off for Crazy Raccoon though, because now, this late into the series, Twisted have no Brawl exclusive maps left to choose. For this final map, Junbin remains in.
Let's
focus on that.
Suravasa begins with Crazy Raccoon's attempt at improving upon their approach towards beating the Diva Brawl compositions from Twisted Minds. University went extremely poorly last map after all, so this time Crazy Raccoon run a Brawl composition of their own that is designed specifically to counter the Diva from Twisted Minds. Finally, we have Hisung on a reasonable starting hero. This matchup isn't too hard to break down, as each team's composition, although similar, places emphasis on different attributes. Twisted Mind's composition is focused on pocketing Quartz's Cassidy. You have the Diva, who can pocket him with Defense Matrix, and the Lucio, who will speed him around. This makes for quite the aggressive composition. On the other hand, Crazy Raccoon are running a Symmetra Brawl comp that focuses more on objective control with a counter Diva backline. The idea is that TVNT's Diva will struggle to contest the point up against Crazy Raccoon's composition, and therefore Crazy Raccoon will have the advantage in terms of point presence and frontal pressure, just with less potential to obtain kills since Stalker isn't getting pocketed on the Cass. And this begins as you would expect up against CR's comp. Twisted are forced to concede the early capture and play a very slow fight for ults. Although it might seem crazy that Twisted gave up the point, they really have no choice. They need to play the retake game, and that begins with Simple building up to his Kitsune to full and then dropping it on the point. At the same time, a pocketed Deadeye comes through from Quartz, of which finds Stalker's Cass. And now, although I'd say it'd be very wise for CR to back off now, Hisung makes the baffling decision to use his Symmetra wall in a desperate attempt to win, and the Sim wall is just an incredibly valuable ultimate too, so that places Crazy Raccoon in a tough spot for the next fight. If they held it, they would have had ultimate advantage, and now they're actually at a disadvantage. It's a quick re-engage for the next fight. CR only want to draw out the fight once they actually have control over the point. They use their Mizuki Sanctuary as a way to get themselves the position very early on, and this flips the point for Crazy Raccoon. This was a good ult, but also kind of a bad ult, but we'll get to that in a moment. Twisted used their Diva Bomb for remech and then re-engage, first with their Sim Wall, then followed with the Beat. These are two of the strongest ultimates in Twisted's ult rotation, and they win out against the fairly weak Annihilation and Deadeye from CR. This is where I believe the mistake from CR earlier is kind of highlighted. Mizuki's Sanctuary is a great counter ultimate, definitely stronger than something like Deadeye, thus it probably would have been best for CR to kind of flip-flop which ultimate they use where. If CR used Deadeye to force point and then used their Sanctuary to counter the re-engage from Twisted, they would have had a better chance of actually winning the fight. It's not a huge mistake, but it may have lost CR the fight. And to get back in time, CR's Junbin swaps over to Ball. First is Vigilante's Kitsune, but it is zoned out by Quartz's Deadeye. CR barely touch and keep it alive. It's a race against time for Crazy Raccoon because Twisted Minds grow closer and closer to building their beat. And during this time, Stalker on the Cass can't seem to find a kill. And so when the beat comes down, TM take the first flashpoint.
逃がしているかギリギリ
そして致命的なダメージを与えた再度 TP をしてくると読んでいたそして
いやーこれはサウンドバリア
In an interesting twist, Junbin decides that even with a Brawl core, he will keep the ball and continue to run it going into second point. He was committed to it. Second point begins with a TP Deadeye from Stalker's Cass, and then Crazy Raccoon make another pretty critical mistake when they use both Simwall and Sanctuary at the same time. These two ultimates basically just do the same thing, so overlapping them is a huge waste. Both wanted to react to Simple's Kitsune, so that's what's caused the confusion. Twisted, happy with a 1-2 ult trade, then rotate up to the high to set up Quartz for a Deadeye. No kills are found just yet, and CR remains in control of the point. First, Junbin's Slam helps Stalker take down Funny Astro's Lucio. Then, in an ensuing brawl, Twisted Minds use their Simwall to keep the fight moving forward. This allows for a retake for TM, even into the mines from Junbin. But now, Vigilante has Kitsune, and he uses it to take the point right back, although TM kinda gave it to them because Yubi had a death wish with this teleporter. Like, what was he thinking? Oh yeah, and Funny Astro takes this too, like what? Anyway, CR have a bit of time while TM respawn and give Yubi his meds, so Junbin scouts a bit, checking the rotation before moving back toward point with his team. It was actually a riskier TP entrance hit to open the fight, with CR using Sim Wall to stabilize and force a longer fight, buying time for Junbin to get his next slam. What Junbin does is he actually catches TVNT's D.Va mid-air while he was trying to get back to his team. The double roll through on top of the slam to finish TVNT off just wins the fight for Crazy Raccoon. That makes it 1-1. The next flashpoint is the most difficult for Ball on this map. The reason being is that it's quite enclosed and difficult for Ball to look for slams and roll-throughs. Enclosed spaces, in general, are kind of just a nightmare for Ball. They also reduce the amount of options or angles that you can take for any given hit, so you're more predictable. So this point is kinda like if Hookah from Oasis was like an entire point. CR were pretty much just lucky to start in a good spot on this point, since Funny Astro decided he has not fed enough on the Lucio and decides to get himself killed early, making for a first point cap. There is also a trade of Sanctuary for Kitsune, which is totally fine for Crazy Raccoon, and I did not even have a chance to mention the beautiful sunroof rollout from Junbin for his initial slam, which, by the way, that didn't even hit Funny Astro, he just died for no reason. Junbin goes for another slam pretty much straight away. Part of the reason for this is that there aren't many good slam spots inside of the point, so looking for slams outside is going to be a bit more consistent and allow Junbin to do more damage. And it is quite a good slam that forces the beat out of Funny Astro a bit earlier than TM would have liked. CR do lose Hisung, but Junbin drops his mines on point to buy time while his team helps him contest. It's not really that winnable of a fight though, but Funny Astro still does his very best for Crazy Raccoon by walking himself into Junbin's minefield. And yeah, Funny Astro's main thing is like Lucio, by the way, so yeah. Junbin, not wanting to throw the point away by running it down on the ball, swaps over to Ramatra temporarily in order to try and win this one out on a bit of a better pick. But Quartz then shows exactly why Twisted choose to pocket him by taking out the opposition himself. Poor Junbin was left wondering where his team went and was forced to reset with a sad little jump off the edge. After that traumatic experience, Junbin gets right back on the ball, and the next fight begins with both teams dropping their Kitsunes on point, and just, oh my god, he really did it. Again, like, why? Funny Astro he's so close to beat, and the late fight win con for Twisted is just his beat. He is the win con. If Funny Astro doesn't run it down here and die first, it pretty much meant Twisted going up 2-1 on this map, which is huge for them, but no, it's denied. And no, you don't understand. It gets worse. The next fight, the very next fight, Twisted Minds gets Sanctuary out of Crazy Raccoon early using the Deadeye. And yes, Junbin does find an excellent boop onto Yubi to put him in a vulnerable position, but you have Suzu, a TP, a Matrix, just so many things to keep him alive, and Funny Astro panics and uses bait! And it's so much worse than you think, because guess what? Yubi, thinking he was going to die, used his teleporter. And Simple, thinking Yubi was gonna die, used his Suzu. So that was absolutely enough to keep Yubi alive. Yet Funny Astro, he uses his beat, and guess what that means for CR? They can just chill with their Mizuki ult and completely wait out the beat. And that opens up the opportunity for Junbin to use a mid-fight mines in overtime.
正面のアップを守り切った。そして今度はこちらのターンだそうか。
そうか。
セットイン。曜日溶かしきった。しかしそのポジションはまだ牽制はできているが、当たり合いでは現在クレイジーラクーン正面から崩しきり世界王者へのマッチポイントはクレイジーラクーンだ。
The panic sets in for Twisted Minds. First comes the swap onto Malga for TVNT. Honestly, this probably makes Twisted's composition just straight up worse, but it's likely TVNT's frustration of playing D.Va into the Mizuki that motivated the decision to swap, even though D.Va is the best option in this scenario. Crazy Raccoon first forced the initial cap with 2 ultimates, overwhelming Twisted Minds. Junbin then rolls through to force the cooldowns out of Simple's Kiriko, and of course, Funny Astro is the first to go out, while close to beat. Junbin is just a little greedy, so he moves into Twisted's spawn and nearly kills Yubi before backing away. This was great ult charge for Junbin, who will now safely have mines ready to go earlier into the upcoming fight. Also, the second panic swap from TVNT, now Zarya. Yeah, it's getting dire. This time, Junbin plays for an exit slam, perfectly timing the hit to eliminate Simple's Kiriko early. I mean, hey, at least Funny Astro gets a break for once, he didn't die first. Junbin hits the roll through on Funny Astro though and forces him out, and this leaves TVNT's Zarya without help, and he falls to Stalker. A great stagger at the end of that fight to leave Twisted with one final chance. Oh yeah, and TVNT is back on Diva now, just complete panic from Twisted. Junbin postures to slam the TP exit, or well, at least aim toward point, partially because overtime is approaching and his mines are the most effective while fighting around the point in these situations. Quartz finds a free little kill onto Chorong though, and Twisted have just the teeniest bit of hope to work with from here. Junbin blocks Twisted's move toward the point with mines, but doesn't fare well on the roll-through, just didn't get the right angle on that. CR have to disengage into Funny Astro's aggressive beat, and Twisted finally retake. CR really want the re-engage here to keep the fight going, and I truly believe the vision was there with Junbin's perfectly timed slam for Stalker's Deadeye. It's just unfortunate that Quartz is still absurdly good, so he was just able to get the better Stalker in order to shut down this move from Crazy Raccoon for good. Quartz then takes it even further by heading off to Crazy Raccoon's spawn real quick to get one more little sweet kill on Stalker before backing off. This buys quite a lot of time for Twisted, and this means CR will only have one more shot at this specific point. Junbin is knocked out of his first setup spot, so what does he do? He ascends and hits a ridiculous rollout up at the top of the point that I did not even know was possible or viable, but it does work. He puts himself in a tough to shoot spot to set himself up for a slam, and he does so without triggering Fireball, which leaves his grapple available immediately. He then hits the impossible boop onto the TVNT baby diva, and this was not the work of our lovely ball player Junbin. No. Because this boop should not be physically possible. So the real culprit, you all already know who to expect. It was him. While his diva was attempting to remech, Funny Astro hit maybe the worst boop of all time that reversed Junbin's momentum, booping TVNT's baby diva into Crazy Raccoon and completely ruined Twisted's fight, even though they had ultimate advantage. It had taken a full year for Crazy Raccoon to do it again, but they managed to take yet another international event. This series is one of the best matches of all time, and absolutely the best international grand final of all time for the OWCS. The diversity in compositions and the differing playstyles between the two teams made for quite the spectacle. Although I normally talk a bit more about the series after it finishes in my videos, I pretty much covered everything I intended on talking about in this video already, so there's really no need. Even now, as the mid-season LAN in Paris is currently in progress, as of writing this video, a lot of the strategies utilized in this video are still pretty relevant. The meta has definitely evolved though, so it'll be interesting to see if Crazy Raccoon can remain at the top. As always, I appreciate your support on these videos. If you watched the whole way through, seriously, thank you. It allows me to continue to create more of these videos, and it also helps me pay for my estrogen, which is of course vitally linked to my omniscient Overwatch analysis powers. Anyways, that is thankfully it for this video. I'll be taking a short break after this one for sure, and I will see you all in a few weeks when I get back from Europe with another video.